had a contract with Jim Brooks to develop a new series for him. We had been running The Simpsons for the past 2.5 years. We'd been on the show since the very start.
They were showrunners on The Simpsons as a team. They were there very early as the top writers just before they were showrunners, and they're brilliant. They're great, and the Critic, God bless it, is one of their labors of love.
He had a deal with ABC that anything he brought to them, ABC would put on the air for 22 episodes. And he came to us with an idea about sort of backstage at the Today Show. It was like a morning version of the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
And he wanted to center it on the woman who did the makeup, which was a little out of our league. We don't know much about makeup, for example. But we were thinking, there are other people at the morning show, the film critic, and then at the same time, League of Their Own came out, directed by Jim's friend Penny Marshall. And he came in one day and he goes, "Do you like John Lovitz? He's so funny in that movie." And we do. We always liked him on The Simpsons and even before. And Mike said, "Oh, wait, why don't we make Lovitz the film critic?" And once we did that, everything else fell away. We just said, that's what we want to do. And we did it all the wrong way. We wrote this thing for John Lovitz, and then we said, "John, you're the only one in the world that can play it. Will you agree to a deal?" and he said, "Well, I guess this is a good position for me to be in." And he had a lot of stuff going because of League of Their Own, so he didn't want to commit to a full-length live-action series, which is what it was. So we thought, well, then we should make it animated. He can do it, and we're good at animation, and it'd be easier to shoot these movie parodies that we wanted to do. It turned out to shoot one of these episodes would have cost $5 million or something in 1993.
It stinks.
We had no visual look to the show. We just had a script that we wrote and sold it to ABC, and they said, "Okay, we'll give you 13 episodes." And then we had to find a design, a look for the critic. And one of John's stipulations was, it can't look like me. And so we have a lot of reasons why the critic does not look like John Lovitz. John is taller, he's not as heavy, he has more hair.
It's funny, as time goes on, he does look more like the critic.
That's true. So do we all.
If they think I'm homely now, they should see this.
There's 4 people with the design credit on the show. David Silverman, Rich Moore, David Cutler, and Everett Peck, I think.
Everett Peck.
Yeah. Silverman designed the look of the critic. Rich and David designed a lot of the supporting characters as well as the general look of the show, the painted backgrounds. Everett Peck is a designer. I know that the Doris character was based on one of his drawings.
Doris, I'm about to do a review that could cost me the woman I love.
Gee, that's tough.
The challenge was to kind of standardize it, which David, I think, did more than anyone. And then Rich was the supervising director all the way through, so he was responsible for the action, the way that the show was shot.
I was a director on The Simpsons for the first 4 seasons of that show, and I was approached by Al Jean and Mike Reese and asked if I wanted to head up this new show that Gracie Films was developing that happened to be animated.
This is Howard Stern. I want to apologize to the following groups: Latinos, Native Americans, and Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. I guess the only one I can make fun of is that fat film critic, Jay Sherman.
The design of Jay Sherman began as a sketch done by David Silverman, and he did a sketch on a napkin, or it was a placemat in a restaurant, of a guy that was kind of a little Andy Kaufman-esque, and Jim loved it, and it looks very much like that Jay Sherman, in the pilot of the first season. And the weird thing was he had a flat head, and these tiny little eyes that were very hard to act with, and he was composed of shapes that were a little difficult to turn in animation. But Jim loved it so much and felt that it was capturing something about the character that I didn't want to change it too much, because it had a humanity to it, that worked well with John's voice. And over time, that original drawing started to kind of, those hard, flat, Frankenstein corners on the top of his head started to kind of like smooth out, and his pupils became a little bit bigger, a little more expressive. And I think he became more appealing in a way. You know, that he could you could act the character better in the new design that was created for the second season. The emotional beats just played stronger.
My mother's bored with her life. What do women your age do?
Die.
If you've created characters in the writing and in design that have a real humanity to them, the audience embraces them and invests their emotions into them, and they take interest in what these characters are doing, you know. So it was never our intention to make them very cartoony, you know, because that's just not the show we were doing.
The animation is awful. They just recycled mouth movements without moving the characters. It's awful, I tell you, awful.
And it wasn't so much designed by committee, but it was more just kind of a think tank of like, you know, well, what do we like about the characters, and what are we trying to say about them? And it was good to have all the creative people involved in the show in one room, and, you know, and David and I could kind of take what everyone was thinking and do a quick sketch and, you know, show it to, you know, those involved, and we'd kind of critique it and, you know, move on to something else if we didn't like it, or kind of go off on that path. And we were having a real tough time with the parents.
Jim Brooks had said, oh, the father should be this crazy wasp. Two things I can say is that the designs of the father and the mother, played by Garrett Graham and Judith Ivey, were based on a photograph of a couple of professors, a professor and his wife.
There's something I should tell you about my parents.
Hello, son. You're adopted.
Well, duh.
And then the daughter, we had a lot of trouble casting the voice.
Debutante balls are outdated, elitist, and sexist.
Nancy Cartwright, who plays Bart, plays the daughter Margot on the show.
This is my sister Margot. She's a junior at Miss Hathaway's School for Untouched Girls.
The voice is a lot like her real voice. You know,
Yeah.
It's like if you wonder what Nancy Cartwright sounds like.
This is the ride I take with all my brother's girlfriends, where they admit they're just using him.
It was like heaven, at least for me, casting the show, because every impressionist came through and we would just make them do their acts. And it was very, very entertaining. It was a lot of fun casting the show.
This is film on the waist.
Look at my fake bosoms. They are really grenades.
Yes, rosebud frozen peas.
You know, 22 is just too old for me.
Let's have another hand for Best Freaking Actress, Faye Dunaway.
I'd like to sing something from Andrew Lloyd Webber.
I pity the fool who messes with the J-team.
I asked for 2 shots, but this is ridiculous.
Maurice LaMarche came in, and he just did these drop-dead perfect impressions. He did the late Dudley Moore. He could do Marlon Brando. And I just seen Son of a Woman, and I said, oh, can you do Al Pacino and Son of a Woman, like off the top of my head? And he did it perfectly.
Now come on, Charlie. I want to get a drink.
They said they need a guy who does a lot of impressions, because there's going to be a lot of film parodies in the thing, because it's a story about a film critic. Oh, and by the way, do you do an Australian accent?
Jay, bubbler.
I was very flattered. I even beat out genuine Australians.
What relationship with a woman has ever been enhanced by having a conversation?
They saw in me the potential of a guy that they could just go, okay, Star Trek the Next Generation's movie is out this week, or will be out by the time the show airs, so you need to work on your Jean-Luc Picard.
All right, you two. Who wrote Beavis and Butthead Rule on the back of my skull?
It would usually there'd be a lot of impressions Maurice could do, and then every once in a while there'd be one where actually Nick would do it a little better, and, you know, we'd split it up that way.
Nick Jameson and Maurice LaMarche would each wind up doing literally 20 to 30 characters in every episode.
Oh, Mr. Sherman, I have saved for you the very best Bible in the house.
I did Vlada. That's how I got the gig. And I think, Duke's assistant.
Good idea, sir.
The soft copy news guy.
OJ refuses to speak.
Nobody very distinctive, but in each show, like you said, we do 20, 25 characters. And Maurice's, especially his impressions, mine's kind of accents and dialects. And we'd make stuff up.
You, sir, are the biggest wuss on the island of Manhattan.
And you have a cute little butt.
We did leave out Christine Cavanaugh did the voice of Marty. She's an actress who's done a lot of animation.
Thank you.
There's one more, which is the Ted Turner character, Duke, is played by Charles Napier. That's his real voice. He's just this real He-Man, tough guy star.
Hey, look, when I'm elected, you can have any office you want, except in the Army. They're still shy about the gay thing.
we had great material to work from. I'm glad that we could plus it, and that's always our job in directing animation, is not to try and step on the voices or the writing.
Our movie in first class today is the sequel to Rain Man, entitled Snowman.
Now, I want to warn you, your brother is a little, special.
5 minutes to northern exposure. Gotta see moose. Gotta see moose.
My favorite, I think, is the Siskel and Ebert episode, and one reason I like it is there's very little of our characters in it.
Well, I thought that film was very poignant, particularly the scene where Tom Cruise walks around Las Vegas with a bucket full of his brother.
Oh, come on, Gene. That was just another pointless sequel that didn't have to be made.
This from the man who liked Benji the Hunted?
Hey, you like Carnosaur.
Well, I'll bet you'll like this.
We were very careful in the movies we picked to parody. They had to be kind of current, but we also wanted to make sure they weren't forgotten to time. And as a result, you watch these shows and you remember the movies that are being parodied. So for something that was sort of ripped out of current pop culture, I'm happy that it holds up very well.
Yeah, it's just the fact that it's still on. There's so many failed TV shows every year, and so many things that nobody remembers even a year later. The fact that we're even doing this is like what I like the best about it.
It stinks.